We're going to get started today with our first drawing lesson on Autodesk Inventor Professional 2019. And to do that, we're going to first take a look at the module. So we're going to head into Content. And we're going to go to Introduction to Autodesk Inventor Solid Modeling. And there are 3 different models that we're going to create, and we're going to do one at a time as an introduction. So this is an introduction to mechanical drafting. We have the control bracket, the right angle brace, and the die punch. So we're going to start our first lesson with the die punch. So when you're creating these models on your computer, you should have this page open on your iPad so you can put your iPad next to your computer and you can work side by side instead of trying to toggle between 2 screens. That's how I'm going to be doing the lesson, so I won't be constantly switching back and forth during the lesson to talk about certain things that you may not be able to see. So all of this is accessible. You can go to the hub on your iPad and you can open up this image and you can refer to it when you're creating the solid models, as what I will be doing. So this is the last time you're going to see this screen today. So I'm going to minimize this and I'm going to launch Autodesk Inventor Pro 2019. I'm going to wait for it to load up. And then we'll start going over the toolbar ribbons and how to get started. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you open it up. The first thing you should do is maximize your screen here. Make use of your monitor. And the first thing you should do is go over to New. So click the arrow under New, select New. And the part that we're going to be starting with, the die punch, is an English unit. So we're going to select English, meaning Imperial, and you're going to be selecting standard.ipt. So make sure you're in English and you're selecting inch. IN means inch, .ipt. .ipt stands for part file. So as we continue with this software, we're going to start to learn what some of these file extensions means and why they're useful to us. So this will create a solid model. So we're going to hit create. And we're going to wait for this to load up. Okay, so this is ready. So the first thing we're going to do when we start is we're going to be starting with a 2D sketch. So even though this is a 3-dimensional software, everything will start in 2D. So the first thing you need to do is go up to this top toolbar ribbon here and find 2D sketch. Now, you can select this drop down arrow, so there's 2D sketch and there's 3D sketch. Make sure that you're selecting 2D sketch. Don't select 3D sketch. This is something that we take a look at in grade 12. So we're always going to be using a 2D sketch. So always select this one. And when you select that, these planes are going to pop up on your monitor. Now these are work planes. If I was to go over to this taskbar here and select this arrow where it says origin, it's going to show me what all these planes are named. So these are all planes that you can select. So you're typically going to select the YZ or the XZ or the XY plane to get started. It really doesn't matter which plane you start with, but I prefer to use the XY plane. So I recommend you use that one in terms of part orientation for later. So I'm going to select XY plane, and then Autodesk Inventor is going to orient that XY plane into a 2D view for me to get started. So I'm actually now looking at this plane in a 2-dimensional perspective. So to get started drawing the punch, I'm going to be starting by drawing the rear of the punch, so the largest diameter. So I'm going to start with a circle. So we're going to grab the circle tool, and we're going to want to start the circle right in the middle of X and Y. So this is X0, Y0. Always start your drawing connected to the origin. So where these two planes intersect, this yellow square, and notice when I flash my cursor near it, it wants to go green. So when I see it go green, it means it's ready for me to begin. So when I see that green snap in XY, I'm going to left click my mouse, and I'm going to be able to start to toggle a circle. So it doesn't really matter how large it is. I can just kind of drop it whenever I feel like it. So I've just randomly selected this part of the screen. Now how Autodesk Inventor works is it's a parametric solid modeling software, meaning that the dimensions drive the geometry. So it doesn't matter what I sketch and what size it is, the dimensions I use to constrain the geometry will control that. So an example is, there's a dimension tool right here on the ribbon. It's called General Dimension. When I select General Dimension, I select anywhere on the circle and a dimension appears. And I can drop this wherever I want. So I'll drop this right here. As soon as I left click to drop it, an edit dimension box appears. And this is where it prompts me to edit the dimensions. So according to the drawing, the radius of that circle is 0.625. So I can type R 0.625. Actually, what I should do, because this is showing as a radius, I'm going to want to multiply this by 2. Because you see how this is dimensioned. It's going from one side of the circle to the other. So this represents a diameter. So the radius would be half of this, right? So the radius would travel from here to the center. The diameter travels from here to the other side. So what I can do is I can multiply this by 2. So what I can do is I can hold the shift key and put a star inside and then 2. And it recognizes that. So that's like giving it a little bit of a math problem there. 0.625 times 2, check mark, will make this 1.250. And this is how this should be, right? So that's one way that you can do this. So you have to understand a little bit of basic math concepts when it comes to radiuses, diameters, that kind of thing. Okay, so we're going to add depth to this circle. So we're going to hit the finish sketch, this check mark. And what that does is it orients this sketch into a 3-dimensional view. We call it an isometric view, actually. And we're going to hit this extrude button. So this is what's going to give it 3D solid mass. So we're going to hit the extrude, and it says on the drawing on my iPad that the thickness is 0.375. So we're going to select 0.375 and hit OK. And now we've got some depth along the z-axis. So we're going to, this is called a free orbit here. So what I can do is when I select this tool, I can spin this around and get a good 360 degree, orbital view at this thing. This is a view cube. If I was to hit right side, it shows me that this is the right side view. If I was to hit this arrow, it orients it to a 2-dimensional front view. If I hit the corner here, it orients it into a 3D view or an isometric view. And I can right click and left click OK to escape from that. And I can hold the wheel down on my mouse. That will allow this to pan around the screen because there's no toggle bars in this software. If I wheel my mouse towards myself, it'll zoom in. If I wheel the mouse away from me, it zooms out. So this is how you can move objects around your screen. To continue on with the punch, so we're going to select 2D sketch again, start 2D sketch, and we're going to select this face, and we're going to make another circle because we're going to create the next diameter on the punch. So we're going to create another circle. We're going to find X, Y, 0, 0 again, and drop another circle just by left clicking. After this, we're going to grab the general dimension tool again and drop another dimension on here. This time, the next diameter is 1 inch. And it actually shows it as a diameter. So on the sheet of paper, on the iPad, in the image, it shows a circle with a line struck through it. In drafting lingo worldwide, that means diameter. So we're going to just put 1. And we're going to hit check mark. And that's going to make that 1 inch. And then we're going to need to extrude it. So we're going to go hit finish sketch again. It's going to orient that back into an ISO view. And I'm going to hit extrude again. And we're going to extrude it. Now, how much do we extrude this diameter? The sheet doesn't actually tell us. So what we need to do, we can look at the length. The length is given. It says the entire punch is 2.375 long. And I have the length of the smaller diameter on the punch, and I have the length of the largest diameter here at the back. Now, watch how I figure this out. So Inventor works kind of like Bedmas. You can put simple math equations into it. So we're going to say 2.375, which is the total length of the punch, and we're going to subtract 0.375, which is the diameter at the back I already extruded, and we're also going to subtract the length of the smaller diameter on the punch that we have not created yet. So that's 1.125. And then the difference is the length. And I'm going to hit OK. And I have it. Moving on, we're going to select another 2D sketch on the face of this diameter. We're going to grab another circle, find XY on 0, 0, create another circle, and constrain it again with a dimension tool. This time the diameter is 0.812, so we're going to select 0.812, check mark. Again, we're going to hit the finish sketch, and we're going to extrude this. So go back, get the extrude feature, and this length is 1.125. It's clearly written there on the sheet. And we're going to hit OK. So we have it. All right, so we can do a little free orbit here. Take a look at it. It's a pretty basic cylindrical part. We're going to put this back into an isometric view like this using our cube. And we're still not finished. So to escape from the free orbit, I'm going to right click my mouse and then left click done or OK. There's a radius in here if you look at your iPad. And this is also known as a fillet in mechanical up here. And it shows the radius picture. So we're going to pick fillet. And we're going to input the fillet. It's listed on the screen as 0.25. So we're going to click this, click 0.25, and then I'm just going to pan this to the right with my wheel so I can see it. I'm going to zoom in on this, and I'm going to select this corner right here, this edge. and it's going to preview that radius in blue. And then once I'm happy with that, it looks correct to me, I'm just going to hit OK. And I have it. So if I can just take a free orbit, I can look at this. I've got this concave radius exactly where it needs to be. So that's pretty easy. But are we done? Almost. There's actually, on this side of the punch, there's a flat spot that's been milled away. Probably to add some relief to inserting this into the die press that it needs to go into. So they've cut some of the diameter off. So we need to represent that in our model here. So the way to do this would be to make a new 2D sketch. Start 2D sketch. But we're going to pick this face again, right here. So if we're drawing or we're sketching right on this surface. If I was to hit the isometric corner, you can see the sketch plane is attached here, right? So we're actually working a little bit blind here. We can only really see what's exposed clearly, which is not much. So we're going to hit the front view again, because that's what we're looking at. This is the front view. And we're going to get our line tool this time. So we're going to draw a line. So we're going to grab our line, and we're going to draw a line somewhere in this area here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but between here and here, we'll draw a line. And we'll make sure it's straight. So when you see this picture appear here, which stands for vertical constraint, you know you've got the line drawn perfect. All right? It doesn't matter how long it is, just draw a line like this that goes through this larger diameter. Left click it. And then we can right click, left click OK to escape. Okay. So what we're going to do now, this is dimensioned from the origin to this line ½ inch, 0.500. So we're going to get our dimension tool. We're going to select this line. And we're going to float our cursor until we see this little white dot appear. When I see this, I know I'm grabbing the origin of the punch. So I'm going to select it, and it allows me to run a dimension. This dimension needs to be edited. It's drawn at 0.527. We're going to edit it to be 0.5 as per the drawing. And we're going to hit check mark. So that constrains it. I don't know if you've noticed, but every time we constrain a piece of 2D sketch geometry, it goes purple when it's constrained. When I originally drew the circles, they were green. And as soon as I applied a value, I constrainment to the diameter, I was getting them to turn purple. So you really need to make sure things are constrained in the software. You really shouldn't be extruding anything until the line geometry or circle geometry or whatever it is you're sketching turns purple. Okay, so we have a couple more things to do. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle. Now, we don't need to actually attach it to the center of the punch. We can draw it somewhere a little offset, off center. So I'm going to pick somewhere around here, and I'm going to draw a circle that's offset like this. And I'm going to right click, left click, OK to escape. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the concentric constraint to line this up into the middle. So these are constraints. We haven't really spent too much time looking at these, but these are going to be very important as we continue through the course and software. So we're going to hit concentric, and we're going to select this part of the circle, and we're going to select the diameter of the first extrusion, and it's going to center that inside the punch for me perfectly. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the dimension tool. We're going to dimension this circle to be, again, 0.625. A star is a multiplication symbol in Inventor, and we can hit 2. Of course, we know that it's 1.250. You could also just enter that, and that would be fine as well. So we're going to hit the check mark. Okay, so that's constrained now. So the last step is to trim off some excess material that we don't need. So what we're going to do is hit the trim button, and we're going to trim this part of the circle off, and we're going to trim this part of the line off and this part of the line off, and we're going to be left with a perfectly constrained sketch that we can use to cut mass away. So if I was to go into a free orbit now, you would get a better look at that sketch here, this purple constrained sketch. So what we're going to do, go into ISO mode, and we're going to hit finish sketch, and we're going to hit extrude again, and we're going to select the profile, and that profile wants to extrude forward and add mass to this punch, but we don't want to do that because this is defaulting to what's called a join. So a join will add mass to an object, and we want to select a cut, which is below. So if I select cut, it forces the arrow the other way, and it's going to want to cut that mass away. So we're going to hit OK, and it does it. So now that actually looks exactly like the image, the three-dimensional isometric image of the punch on your screen. So we're going to do a little free orbit, take a look at it. Looks good. Perfect. Go back to ISO mode. Hit that corner, right click, left click, OK. One more thing to do before this video ends is we're going to go to File, and we're going to go to Save As. And we are going to name this. So we're going to call it, I'm going to save it to my desktop. Make sure that you save these files to a location where you can retrieve them on your computer. So you may want to put them in a folder you create called, for this course, start a folder called 3D modeling or intro to solid modeling, and start putting these files in there. So I'm going to call this die punch, and I'm going to put it on my desktop for now. Hit save. And that is it. So that is how we complete the first 3D model in our course. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd like you to try it on your own, and hopefully you have success with it. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.